Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation? Welcome to another episode of Surviving the Survivor. It is the podcast that promises to bring you the very best guests in all of true crime. And we made this commitment at the end of 2024, and it's continuing through 2025. Happy New Year, everybody. We are bringing you breaking news, and there is breaking news out of Miami today. And I'm here in front of the federal courthouse in downtown Miami, just so you can see what people deal with in the field as reporters. This is who's watching me at this very moment. That is right. I don't know what that is. It's a rooster of some sort is watching me live, and it is making me a little uncomfortable. And there's about 20 others, so you're going to hear some cockadoodle doing in a moment. But on to some serious news here, and I'm doing this all on the phone again. I'm going to try to see if I can get to some of your comments. Thank you, Mish, for the shade. So the headline here today is Alon Alexander, the 37-year-old twin, accused of the R word, the SA phrase, and sex trafficking. He was just denied a pretrial release. His attorney, Howard Srebnick, who is a very well-known, very accomplished attorney out of the Miami area, perhaps the best in all of Miami, he made a very, very diligent effort to try to get his client, Alon Alexander, one of the twins out of these three brothers, on a pretrial release. In other words, on a home arrest. And the judge heard arguments from Howard Srebnick, the defense attorney, the government. And by the way, a few of these prosecutors are actually flying down from Manhattan. They are coming down here because they will eventually take the baton on this case. So the headline there, it was denied, and I'll go through what the arguments Howard Srebnick made were and why it failed. Now, I also, I'm not going to play it yet. I didn't, there was a media gaggle with Howard Srebnick after the hearing, and he said something that really kind of took me by surprise, the way he said it. I asked him, basically, in so many words, where there's so much smoke, isn't there fire? He said, absolutely not. And I said, what about 40 plus victims coming forward? And by the way, there was another lawsuit just filed with a minor. I asked, are they all lying? And he said something to the effect of, yes, they are all lying. It is all a money grab. I don't know, not great PR, in my opinion, but definitely an ardent defender of Alon Alexander. So that's one issue here. Now, Oren Alexander is the other brother, the twin. These are the twins, one working for the security company, one in the real estate business with the third brother, Tal. Tal is going to be removed. I'm not sure where he physically is. He will be taken to New York. Alon Alexander will be taken to New York Tuesday evening or Wednesday. Howard Srebnick asked for a stay once his request to have this pretrial release was denied. He then asked, well, can he remain here in Florida until Tuesday, as his attorney, Howard Srebnick, tries to sort out details. So it was very interesting. Then we get to Oren Alexander, and he has an attorney named Richard Klugh, I believe it is. I'm going to find it on my notes here. I have a bunch of different notes. And Klugh, K-L-U-G-H, and he's a little bit older. He originally, this hearing was supposed to happen on Monday, but he asked to have it pushed to Friday. He was dealing with an eye issue, and then came into court today and basically said, look, his eye was really bad. He brought his wife in to kind of corroborate how awful it is. He's been on antibiotics. It was a serious eye issue. And so, therefore, he asked to have Oren's portion pushed to Tuesday. Now, with Oren, they have to have what is known as a removal hearing. In other words, anytime you want to move someone from one jurisdiction to another, you've got to have a removal hearing. And essentially, what the government needs to do, and what this lawyer, Clue, is asking for, who is representing Oren, is a government witness to say, yeah, it was Oren that we arrested. It's interesting because these are basically identical twins. Even the judge said he couldn't tell them apart. So now one of the defense, positions is going to be, how do you know who did what? And they're already starting that by basically. And that's a phone call. They're basically trying to force the government's hand by bringing a government witness, aka the FBI agent who arrested them, to say, yes, this is the right person. It's all procedural. It will get done. Almost certainly, Oren Alexander too will be denied pretrial release. I can't see one over the other, and I'm gonna get into the details on all this. It's actually a really fascinating case. You've got four brothers in this family. The parents are Israeli. They come from absolutely nothing. They came here as immigrants with not a penny in their pockets. They are worth hundreds of millions of dollars through real estate and other businesses, including a security business. And now these two parents have produced three of their spawn, are accused of some of the most heinous crimes a human can commit against another human, especially a man against a woman. And I saw, of all places, because you remember this from Sarah Boone, when I went to the restroom after a long court hearing. I was beside uh, the brother's father, and I don't want to get too graphic in terms of painting a photo, but let's say this: he was standing in front of a urinal with both arms up above him on the wall, like he was just completely spent, like he had to lean over, um, and you could just see the pain, anguish, suffering, and the torment to come on his face. But obviously, there are many, many accusers out there. So it's going to be a fascinating case, to say the very least. Now, into some of the specifics, and I'm going to try to scroll down here. I'm not sure if I'm seeing all the live comments, but I believe I am. So, obviously, this is federal court. You're seeing it behind me, albeit washed out a little bit by sunlight. But the two brothers were among other defendants when this hearing began. They were the final two defendants to go. All the defendants were sitting in what normally would be the jury box, right? So they're sitting in the jury box. And what was interesting is Oren was on the far left of the jury box, and Alon was on the far right, literally alone. There was no one near him. The other defendants were all on the other side. I assume this was done very specifically. The U.S. Marshals are inside the courthouse, along with federal agents, and I don't think they wanted them next to each other. So they're in beige jumpsuits. Obviously, there's no cameras in a federal courthouse. They're in a beige jumpsuit with sort of a greenish black shirt underneath. By Miami standards, it's chilly here today. It's going to be in, I think, the 60s. So people are bundled up there. Again, they're on opposite sides. It is the U.S. District Court, the Southern District of Florida, and the judge presiding is Judge Cruz. I'm looking for his first name. So he was the one presiding over the hearings today. Um, both looked, I'm just checking out my notes here, both looked noticeably tired, noticeably fatigued, noticeably thinner, and just kind of worn out with sort of a dumbstruck look on their face, like what is going on, kind of a what is going on, get me out of here uh, look on their face. Now, with that said, Oren, who in one of the photos that's been publicly released, is smirking. And at one point during the proceedings, Oren actually sort of started to laugh. Very inappropriate. I mean, there's no jurors in there, but inappropriate for the judge to see. The government is watching. Everyone is watching. Now, the gallery on the brothers' side was completely full. On the government side, it was mainly media and a few onlookers. So that part of it was interesting. But I started the day today by reading, and I posted it. You do need a subscription, but the Miami Herald is doing really good reporting on this. And there was a new civil lawsuit filed. More than 40 accusers have come forward. And again, I'm going to play it in a moment, but this attorney for Alon Alexander said it outrightly. Wasn't even, he wasn't trying to be careful with his words. He said every single accuser is on a money grab and lying about what happened. So that is just such a FU to all of these potential victims who are brave enough to come forward. But my morning started by reading the Miami Herald article, the latest one. The latest one involves a civil lawsuit, and I obviously don't have all the details, and I'm jerry-rigging this with a phone out on scene here. We're going to be doing a lot more of this, but we're going to be better prepared with tripods and things of that nature. By the way, happy 2025 once again, everybody. We're in it, and it's going to be a whole new level for STS coming to you this year. So he basically said, look, all these accusers are lying. And with that said, there's a front page story in the Miami Herald today of a woman who at the time was 17. This is in Colorado, I believe, Aspen, filed a civil suit. She's asking for damages and a jury trial. And I can't even go into the details. She was underage at the time. This was a few years back, according to the civil suit. She was brutally AR'd by the brother, by Oren, I believe it was, and then brutally AR'd again in a different area, if I can say that. Super vicious, super violent. She claims she was drugged. And so a civil suit has been filed now in Colorado. Civil suits filed in Florida. Civil suits filed in New York City, of course. So they're popping up everywhere. And again, Howard Srebnick, this attorney, says they're all lying. So the court system, criminal justice system, will decide that. Again, the gallery is completely full. The father and mother of the brothers were sitting in the very back row of the gallery on the defense side. And the father noticeably was wearing a yarmulke, a kippah, the thing that Jewish people wear on their heads, which was interesting because I've never seen him wearing one before. He definitely needs all the help he can get, especially from any higher authority that he can get it from. So he was definitely, looking to power beyond him or the justice system for a little bit of help here. He did not get it because ultimately, again, his son Alon's request for a pretrial release was summarily smacked down after Howard Srebnick made the case for it. The dad in a green button-down shirt. He has kind of silver slick back hair. The mom was in a black sweater, beige blouse. What was interesting about her eyes were literally closed. I would say 90% of the hearing. Her head was back, and her eyes were very heavy. I don't know if she is sedated. I would think maybe she is. But she was having a very hard time keeping her head up and her eyes open. So I noticed that for sure inside the courtroom. Moving on to the notes here. Basically, the judge with Alon standing there. And really the hearing was revolving around Alon because Oren's has now been pushed to Tuesday, and I'll be there for that one, I believe. But um, the judge basically said, Judge Cruz, a federal judge, said that he reviewed the case file. With that said, Howard Shrebnick said, I have more arguments to be made. He informed the court, and the court already knew this, that they had submitted a proposal, a more concrete proposal. They identified, the defense said, a two-bedroom condo, an eighth floor, two-bedroom condo. They obviously did not give the address, which they said was not a luxury condo, but rather a condominium that's been offered up by friends of the family, where Alon could have stayed on this house arrest. Kept pointing out that it was on the eighth floor, as this, suggests, the only way he could get out is to jump, and he couldn't do that, or he wouldn't be with us anymore. He also mentioned a company many times during the hearing called V2 Global. V, the letter V2 Global. V2 Global is a private security firm. And keep in mind, the family founded their own private security firm called Kent Security. So they all must know each other. But they said, the attorney here said that V2 Global would never sully their reputation or mess around, and that they would literally have people in there watching Oren Alexander from this nondescript eighth floor Miami condo. The lawyer brought up some previous cases involving situations similar to this with a guy, not important, but his name is Mr. Napout, from 8 years prior, and again, it was paid for. This particular person paid for his own security, because that was another issue. Well, these guys are paying for it, so it's coming directly from them, funds directly from them, so therefore they would have control. So Howard Shrebnick, the attorney for Oren Alexander, said, hey, but this guy, Mr. Napout, did the same thing, and he paid for it. What's up with that? Howard Shrebnick said, it appears, there's the optics of, well, we're trying to buy our way out of jail. That is not the case. He said they have not been convicted of anything. Basically, that the federal testimony by this FBI agent who spoke to more than 40 alleged victims, Howard Shrebnick said that was all hearsay. It was just her speaking to, basically people who were telling things firsthand to her, which is now, secondhand, and then to the court, it's basically third hand. So he was arguing hearsay, which was sort of a ridiculous argument. Obviously, the FBI agent did her due diligence and brought in the appropriate people, asked the appropriate questions, and so forth. Now, she's going to be back as a witness for Oren on Tuesday, again, to ID him correctly for the court, so that then more than likely the chances now of Oren getting a pretrial release after it was denied to Alon, in my opinion, which is not much, by the way, is next to zero. So he will likely also be remanded into the custody of the U.S. Marshals, which is exactly what happened with Alon today. At the end, when it was finally quashed and the judge said no go, the judge then said, you are remanded into the custody of the U.S. Marshals. Now, the belief was that he could be taken back to New York as soon as today. But again, Howard Shrebnick, the lawyer, asked at that point for him to have a stay until Tuesday evening. And the issue there is that there's more work to be done. The lawyer wants to appeal the no pretrial release. He says he's definitely doing that, at least up in New York, if not down here. So it kind of went on and on. He then turned to the issue of the parents. The parents are willing to do anything for these 3 children that they raised, who are now all in serious trouble. The government making it very clear that they face 15 years to a potential life sentence, and the betting odds are that it'll be on the back half of that it'll be closer to a life sentence than 15 years. Again, I got to say, watching these guys, and this is why I came down, I really wanted to see them face to face. They are shook, for lack of a better word. I mean, there was a couple moments again where Oren Alexander was kind of laughing. but there was also many moments where he was looking to his mother in the back row. We were all trying to figure out who, but we believe it was the mother. And he was trying to talk to her, literally whispering from the jury box where he was sitting. And these guys, both of them, shackled around the waist, hands tightly cuffed, ankles tightly shackled. I mean, they were having a tough time walking around doing the old, shuffle, the shackle shuffle. Now, Howard's point with the parents who were there was, look, they're not going to be willing to basically give up their life's fortune just for their kids to run off and squander all the money, because they have to put up $100+ million, which is what was on the table. The judge obviously did not buy that. And then Howard Shrebnick, who is Jewish, said, oh, and the Israel thing, they're not going to sneak into Israel. He really played that down. He said, Israel's the last place on earth anyone is sneaking into now, implying that there's a war going on there. But I can tell you, that's the rooster cockadoodle doing. If it's not a pet, it ain't STS. Chewy, where are you in 25? You better sponsor us. I can tell you firsthand, my own sister was just in Israel, had no problem getting there and coming back, and that was on a commercial jet. It's very easy to move in and out of Israel unless there's, bombs and rockets raining down. The COE and I are going to fix this whole mobile setup too. We promise you that. So the wife, according to the attorney, worked for a brigadier general, apparently, in the IDF. And the government raised that as an issue. Basically, the defense said, what's the big deal? It's a brigadier general. He has nothing to do with anything. The point that the government was making is that they have tremendous wealth, tremendous pull, tremendous contacts. So when it was all said and done again, the judge basically saying, no go, you're not getting out. Mario, if you can hear me, Space Coast on the West Coast. By the way, we've got new merch. I was tweeting it out and Instagramming it out, Twitter at Podcast STS. On Instagram, at Surviving the Survivor, you can get a Space Coast shirt. I ordered one because it's, to me, the coolest one. Got COE shirts that the COE put together because she's the COE. So you can get a COE shirt because everyone's got their own COE. I'm not seeing any of the comments, guys, just for full disclosure, or if I am, they're moving super slowly. But Space Coast, let me know, can we roll the sound with Howard Shrebnick? This is the defense attorney. Let's watch this together and wait for the end.
The magistrate judge was not willing to impose the conditions of release that we had proposed, including home confinement under electronic monitoring, surveilled by a private security company that is manned by former federal law enforcement officers, including the former special agent in charge of the FBI. But we believe that once this case arrives in New York before the federal judge, we'll have an opportunity, once the brothers, 2 so far, have been ordered to be removed to New York. We believe that the judge, presented with these conditions, knowing that the brothers will be in New York under similar conditions of release, will impose those conditions and allow them to remain free pending trial so they can work with their lawyers and not be faced with the abominable conditions at the Metro Detention Center in Brooklyn.
Howard, the government says something about being so against the fact that a private company would be watching the file. Do you think that was really the main thing?
So courts have routinely approved having private security guards act as an additional assurance of compliance. This is not something that I invented, something that has been done for years. I was involved in a case in 1999 right here in this courthouse where this court and the Eastern District of New York approved the use of a private security company, only because we try to give the court all the assurances possible so that the court will be comfortable that the defendants will comply with those conditions.
So what about the ties with Israel?
I think the Israel tie is an irrelevant point. Nobody is suggesting that anyone is fleeing to Israel or anywhere else. And of all places on the planet Earth right now, to try to enter Israel as a fugitive. Really? Is that really something that anyone is concerned about?
So this is an issue that you're going to be taking up with the court in New York to attempt to secure some sort of confinement release?
We will certainly be asking the judge to reconsider this decision. It'll be a motion to revoke the order of pretrial detention. We're going to be asking the judge to consider these most strict conditions that we've suggested, understanding that these boys have known for months that they were under investigation and did not do one single thing to give anyone a reason to believe that they would flee.
What do you say to prosecutors are painting this picture? These are wealthy individuals trying to set up their own private jail.
Understand they've been convicted of nothing. They have no criminal history. They are not supposed to be in jail. They are supposed to be, under our laws, presumed innocent. They're supposed to be granted bail. Now, when a court has concerns about conditions of bail, we can offer those that have been approved by other judges as long ago as 20 years, including, to give the court comfort, a security company. If the government wants to pay for it, that's fine. But if the government's going to require that we pay for it, because this family has the resources through their decades worth of work in this country, they started in this country with nothing. All of the money we're talking about using to provide private security is paid for by legitimate, hard-working parents who are willing to support their children.
Howard, the judge seemed to come down on the issue of equal justice for the wealthy and the poor. Is there any way around equal justice on a bond issue?
Well, I still believe in our country that we don't demonize people who have established wealth through hard work. I hope we're not saying that in this country everybody has to be exactly equal. It's just that we're all entitled to equal opportunity. Anyone who comes to this court can make the same proposal that I made today. They don't need to be the ones with the money. They can go to the community, their friends, family, anyone who believes that they will not pose a risk of flight. In this case, the defendant's parents have that wealth, hard-earned, and they should be able to use that wealth in order to give the court comfort that their children will not flee.
Can you share Alon's reaction to the denial today and also the removal process? You asked for a stay till Tuesday. Will he be taken up immediately after that?
So naturally, Alon, as we're all very disappointed that the court did not set bail. Of course, we will appeal that decision. On the issue of removal, there was going to come a day where Alon would have to be in New York. I don't think the government proved its case here, but in all events, between now and whenever the judge in New York asks Alon to be there, of course he'll be there.
What about the family, the parents, the mother? What do they think? They left the court already.
I think most people were surprised that in our country, the government could show up at a bail hearing with an agent who has no personal knowledge about anything. Not one of the accusers has testified before the grand jury. Not one of the accusers has been subject to cross-examination. Not one of the accusers has gone under oath before a federal judge to point at these defendants and say they've done anything wrong. Up to now, what we have are lawsuits filed by plaintiffs who are seeking money in exchange for going to court and trying to take the legitimately earned wealth away of our clients.
What the parents have to say. My question was the families. You guys were talking after the verdict today.
The parents are disappointed. They've offered everything because they know their sons will abide by every condition of bond. They know that their sons are steadfastly maintaining their innocence. They know that the people accusing their sons have never had to testify subject to cross-examination. One day will come. They will have to come to court. These accusers will have to subject themselves to the oath. They'll have to subject themselves to cross-examination. They'll have to be confronted by the evidence we have to prove that each and every one of these accusers is rendering a false narration, a false accusation against the Alexander brothers.
There was just another civil suit filed. She's a minor. Any comment on that?
That civil suit, the one in Colorado, the age of consent is 17, not 18. Any suggestion that it had something to do with a so-called minor is wrong under that law.
That's regarding the Colorado case? I'm sorry.
The Colorado case, in Colorado, the age of consent is 17, not 18.
I know it's your job as an attorney and you're a very good one, but when more than 40 victims have come forward and you simply say that,
40 accusers have come forward only after the law changed to allow people after the fact to try to make a claim to profiteer from sexual activity they had many years ago. So the one thing that's in common about the 40 is that none of them have ever gone to the FBI before. None of them have ever gone to the police before and made an accusation against these boys. Not one.
So all of them are lying?
Every one of them.
Every one of them?
Every one of them.
Are you sure that none have gone to the police? I don't think that is the case. Thank you, Howard.
There you have it. That I got to tell you, I've been reporting a long time, and I think Howard just made a big mistake in the court of public opinion, because that's just, again, in my own perception of how I would handle this, it would be a lot more gentle than the way he just did. He basically just said, you heard it with your own ears, that every single alleged victim is lying for money. I get that it is his job, but there's certain ways to say certain things, because where there is smoke, there is fire. And I was incredulous when he said that. I was incredulous. But I'm glad I pushed him on it. By the way, love having my own podcast. I was there with all the old people I work with, at CBS 4 in Miami, and other people who I know. And I hate to say it, mainstream media, it's dead. It really is. Horrible little sound bites, no information, no connectivity to an audience. But I digress. There'll be more of me complaining about that or whining about that in the future. So, picking up again. And by the way, the other thing is Shrebnik calls them boys. These are 37-year-old men. I mean, I got to be honest. At 55, I sometimes feel like a boy, but in in both the courtroom and the court of public opinion, these are men. And this story kind of hits close to home because I know people who know these people, who know the victims, and this has been sort of an open secret. And what Howard Shrebnik said, I believe, is incorrect. I think people had previously reported this, at least to some local law enforcement. I believe that there were certain R kits that were taken or given at hospitals, and he's making a blanket statement there. So, I take issue. Let's put it this way with what he said, and I'll be back here Tuesday, and he might not be back here because it's the other client. It's Oren, and he's representing Alon, but he might be here, and I'm gonna kind of follow up on that if I'm able to. So I'm gonna move it along a little bit quicker here. By the way, it's my middle daughter's 9th birthday. Happy birthday to Z-Bugs, and I have got to get to the birthday party. By the way, someone, of course, it wouldn't be a show without someone yelling at me that we did not cover the terror attack on New Year's. There were multiple reasons for that. Number one, I made a commitment to my children. Number two, I was holding off on that to see if there was going to be connections or ties to anybody else, if there was going to be a manhunt, a bolo, be on the lookout, because that's where, it becomes important for media and the press to hop on stuff. That it turned out that it was a lone actor, a horrific way to start 2025. But it's also a highly, tense and volatile type of story, and so I was just kind of giving it some breathing room, and then it turned out he was acting alone. By the way, they let a reporter into the terrorist home, the alleged terrorist home in New Orleans, like 24 hours after the fact, if that. I do not understand that. That should be a crime scene. I have no idea why that happened, but again, I digress. Back to the issue of the Alexander brothers. Again, Howard Shrebnik calling them boys. They are not boys. They are men. It's an open secret here in Miami that this has been going on since their high school days. The government got up after Howard Shrebnik did his whole thing and basically said, look, it is a two-tier system in this country for the indigent and very rich, and this is why there was um, a, a bail reform act put into place. It said it is just simply not fair to have two different standards for the wealthy and then the less fortunate. And so, why did the Alexander brothers get to post $100 and something million bail or bond, and yet someone who's indigent can't post and has to, stick their behind back in the system and being held. So, with that said, the judge agreed with that. The government then went on to say and make the point that I was talking about earlier, which is 3 of 4 of their children. Now, if I'm a parent, which I am, and 3 of 4 of my children are accused of these horrific acts, you got to, as Steve Cohen says, point the thumb, not the finger. Something's going on with these parents. Something's going on at home, and to raise 3 kids like this who are accused of such terrible crimes, um, it's not good. And so the government said, look, 3 of the 4 children are facing possible life in prison. So the parents are going to do absolutely everything. The government said there's access to waterways here, which is true. There's a canal almost everywhere you turn. You can get on a boat. There's a lot of private airfields and airports. And she said the defendants themselves have experience because she said that they were throwing these parties where they were doing these things to women all over the world. So they have some of the best planners around and can sit there and plan their getaway. And so that was another reason the judge basically denied it. Now, I took a note here that Oren was mouthing from the gallery a lot at this point. He was looking for help. He was looking for answers. He was trying to figure out what was going on. When he finally heard that his brother was going to be denied this release, he was incredulous. It was like a Charlie Adelson moment, like, oh, no, we're stuck in the system now. Howard Shrebnick also went on and talked about the horrific conditions, which is where the boys will be sent after this, which is to the MDC in Brooklyn, the Metropolitan Detention Center. You know that because Sam Bankman-Fried is there and Sean Diddy Combs. And he basically said, look, that place is a hellhole with rats. It's not a safe place for my clients or client and Alon Alexander. And the judge didn't want to hear any of it. So also, the wives were in court. Space Coast, we have video of the wives walking out. If you want to play that. You can see, obviously, that they are they're covered up.
How you guys holding up?
Not very well. I asked them how they're holding up, and obviously they're not doing well. They're literally completely covered up, but those are the brothers' wives right there. Alon Alexander has 2 children, and Oren, I think the wife was supposed to give birth any day. So I'll try to get a little bit more information about that. Last but not least here, Space Coast, let's run the video. This is Richard Clue. This is now the attorney for Oren Alexander, and I'll tell you why his hearing was postponed.
Mr. Clue, you happy with the way things went today?
We having our hearing regard to our client will take place next week, and we expect to present some very significant evidence.
And you think your outcome will be different than Alon Alexander's?
I really don't want to talk about any other defendant's case at this time.
He didn't really like my question. I don't think the outcome is going to be any different. He knows it's not going to be any different. I don't know what was the strategy today, but he was citing his eye issue. I don't know if it was a cataract or something else, but it was something along those lines. And therefore, he said he had to, reschedule the hearing with Oren Alexander on Tuesday. So, wrapping up right now, the judge said, look, there's risk of flight. These are extremely serious charges. And he said that they could be detained at home. This is what the judge said about Alon at the end of his sort of summation, that he could be detained at home. But then he brought in the flight risk, and he says it was just too much. He also said there was dozens of alleged victims, ties to Israel and Brazil. The brother-in-law has ties to Brazil and have family there. So he said not one country, but there's potentially two countries that they could flee to, if not many more. We saw what happened with Donna Adelson trying to go off to Vietnam. And he simply said there's not enough to release them, to release Alon. Now on to Oren Alexander. Again, you just saw his attorney, a guy named Richard Clue, obviously has been doing the job a long time because he's on the older side. The defense and the government here, Richard Clue and the government really got into it. The government is flying down from New York, a bunch of their attorneys, and he knew full well that there was this hearing today, and then basically said we need to put it off. And the government was beside itself, saying, look, this is just gamesmanship. You're playing games. At least we should have the detention hearing, because there was also the removal hearing. Again, just to recap that, the removal hearing essentially is anytime someone is removed from one jurisdiction to another, as it was explained to me, there has got to be a hearing before a judge. So they didn't want to do the removal hearing. Debbie Blair, I did see Charlie's appeal was denied, and we're going to do that on Monday night, 5 o'clock, trying to get Tim, Joe Patuto, and maybe John Singer, 5 or 7 on Monday on the Adelson. So the bottom line here with Oren is he's going to be in court on Tuesday. I'm going to try to be here fetching papers on Tuesday as well, and do some follow-up with these attorneys and make sure that justice is being meted out here at federal court in Florida. Simultaneously, while I am talking, please don't miss this. This was one of the more interesting interviews I've done. It was with Rob D'Amico. He's a frequent guest on the show. He's a member of the very elite hostage rescue team with the FBI. And I did a Surviving My Biggest Case with him. And he told a story about 4 Americans murdered on a ship, their own ship, in outside or in the waters of Yemen. And what did Rob D'Amico do? Within less than 3 hours notice, drives up from down south to Washington, D.C., hops on a military plane, and what happens next is the stuff of legend and myth, but it is all actual reality. You will see what a extreme badass Rob D'Amico really is, the things that these guys do, and he did it with the SEAL team. And it was just a fascinating interview. So I highly, highly recommend that. So I did not plan on being here today. It's my daughter's 9th birthday. I love what I do. I love reporting. I love big stories. These guys are accused of heinous, disgusting crimes. When you have 2 daughters like I do, you start to take things more personally. There was such an arrogance about them in that courtroom. There was an arrogance about the wives walking out. Usually I leave because in many ways they're victims too. I leave them alone, but there's been a sort of an arrogance about them, which is why I asked them how they're holding up. I wanted to give them a chance to respond. I like going toe-to-toe with tough attorneys like Howard Shrebnick, and I plan to be back here on Tuesday. We're going to be back Monday morning. Shanna Gardner's in court. Monday evening, it's going to be Charlie Adelson, and the Menendez brothers are all over the news again. There's a special hearing going on just with family today, so we'll pick up on that as we ease back into 2025. Don't forget, there is new merch. It's in the link tree. The COE will put it in there. Coming to you live here from the federal courthouse in downtown Miami for live coverage of the Alexander brothers in federal court. Once again, Alon Alexander denied pretrial release, as was Tal Alexander. And I'm not sure if he's here or back in New York already, but Alon will soon, on Tuesday or Wednesday, be headed to New York City to face more federal charges up there. And that leaves one, Oren Alexander, the smug-faced 37-year-old. And I can tell you almost with 100% certainty that his pretrial release will be denied, and he'll be following his two brothers up to federal court in Manhattan and the Brooklyn Detention Center, where he'll say hello to Sean Diddy Combs, and he's going to meet a whole new reality. But if you do the crimes, and he has not been convicted yet, he's got to go to court. There are many, many accusers out there, but if you do the crime and you're convicted, you better damn well for sure know you're going to do the time. With that said, love you, America. Love you, Miami. Happy 2025. Wishing everybody the best for a prosperous, healthy, happy new year. Now I'm off to see my daughter for her 9th birthday. She's getting old. Love y'all.